Hi everyone, welcome back in another exciting project where we're going to be building this simple expense tracker using React, Tailwind CSS, Typescript, and Next.js. So it's going to be a front-end application. So that's the design, the overall design of our application. So it's pretty modern, clean. So let's start from the top. So we're having the title. So I choose the name of the application like this, Pennywise, the search bar, which is functioning search bar, like as you can see, as I'm typing, I'm gonna have the results live. And if something is not found, so we're gonna have this simple no results found text. And we can be able to add a new expense. So I'm going to show you what's gonna happen. Then we're gonna have the drop down, the all wallets to be able to manage all the wallets just from here. We can be able to add the wallet to modify and delete the wallet just like this. And also we can be able to select the expenses based on the wallet that we clicked on. So when I click on cash, we're gonna have only the expenses that are in the cash wallet, and the same thing for the credit, and the same thing for the other wallets. And also we're having the clear button to be able to clear all the expenses by one single button. And here we're having the date, we're having how many transactions, we're having the value, and we're having the list of all our expenses. So you can be able to modify them to delete them. So let's start by adding a new expense. So when I click on the add new or the new expense, we're going to have this very beautiful window that's going to pop up. We need to add the expense name. Also, we're having the icon. So when I click on this, we're going to have this very awesome window that we're going to create to be able to select the icon. And also we're going to use the MUI library so we can be able to use all of these awesome icons. So, and let's click on this to be able to uh, select the icon. We're having the amount, and also we're having the wallets, to be able to select the expenses too. So when I click on the bank account, and I click on the add expense, and as you can see, I'm having the error messages telling me that we need to fill the inputs. So let's add something like this, and let's add a random amount, and let's click on add expense. And as you can see, we're having this very beautiful notification, and we're going to use the React Hot library to be able to show all of these notifications. And also we can be able to modify the actual expense. So when I click on this, as you can see, all the information are in the window, and here we can be able to modify the expense, and we're gonna modify the wallet. So let's do something with the amount and click on edit expense, and as you can see, our um, our expense has been modified successfully. And also we can be able to delete the expense. So let's click on delete, and we're going to have this awesome confirmation window model to be able to delete the expense. So when I click on delete, as you can see, we're having again this notification telling the user that the expense has been deleted. So now let's move on to the wallets. So we can, as I said, we can be able to add the wallet. So when I click on add, as you can see, we're going to have this, again, this window to be able to add the wallet. So let's add something like this just randomly. So let's choose a new icon and click on add wallet. And also we're going to have the notification again. So when I open up the drop down, and by the way, this drop down also we're going to create it by ourselves. So here, this is the actual wallet that we created. And if we go um, to the expense to be able to add it, we can be able to see our new wallet in here. So let's select it and edit it. So as you can see, we're going to have the wallet updated in the expense, and also when we click on the test, we're going to have it here as well. So let's click on the all wallets to be able to see all the expenses. Then we can be able to um, modify the wallet if we want to. So let's add something like this. Let's add an icon and click Edit Loading. And as you can see, the wallet has been updated and also the related um, expense also has been updated. So as you can see, we're having the new name of the wallet in this expense. And finally, we can be able to delete the wallet. So when I click on delete, we're going to have this model popping up. And when I delete the wallet, also, as you can see, the expense that is related to this wallet has been deleted automatically. So this is the application that we are going to build. And also another thing that I want to show you, let's, for example, select this wallet and we can be able to search from here. So if we have a lot of expenses in this wallet, so the search is going to work as well. And finally, what I'm going to show you is to be able to clear out all the expenses if we want to. So when I click on clear out and I click on delete, all the expenses are deleted, and now we're having this empty placeholder with this icon. Uh, just to make sure that this window, this part is not empty because it's not going to look good for the user. And notice that right now the clear button is great, so we can be able to do anything until we add something in the at the expense. And as you can see, the number of transactions is zero, the value is $0. So everything is interactive. So that's what makes this application is a little bit complex, even if it seems simple to build, but it took me quite a while to be able to build this. So if you want to learn how to build this application, improve your skills in React, so that's the right project to build. And especially if you're just getting started with React and you want to amp up your skills, so that's the right project for you. So if you want to learn how to create this project, stick with me till the end of this video. Hi, welcome back in Visual Studio Code. And as you can see, I already created my project using Next.js. So the first thing that you should do is go to the Next.js page. And so we're going to click on Get Started and we're going to click on the installation. So the first thing that you should do, make sure to install Node.js. So because without it, we can be able to use the npm, and also Next.js is built on top of Node, so it is mandatory to have this installed in your system. Without it, you can't be able to use Next.js. So after installing it, the next thing that we're going to do, we're going to copy this and go back to your terminal and paste it in here. So I'm not gonna do this because I already created my project, but you will have something like this. So it's gonna ask you to type in the name of the project. So I choose this name, Pennywise, since we're gonna use create a budgeting application. I'm going to use Typescript, but also ESLint, Tailwind CSS, and for the source folder, so I'm gonna just use the app folder, and for the other options, I'm gonna use the default options. So after doing so, the first thing that we should do is go to your global.css and get rid from the body class in here because it uses some gradient colors and all of that. So I want to make sure that all the CSS properties are clear, and also in the page.tsx, make sure to get rid from the boilerplate code that is given. And the next thing that I did here, if we go back to the local 30,000 page, as you can see, uh, here I'm using another font. So I'm using the font or the Poppins font. So to be able to install the Poppins font, what we're going to do, we're going to go to the layout.tsx, and here we're going to use the Poppins add the Poppins object in here. Then we're going to create this variable that's going to use the Poppins object, and inside of it, we're going to have all of these properties. After that, into the body, so we're going to use the Poppins dot variable. So after doing so, go back to your global dot CSS file, and in here, make sure to add this Poppins class name. So after doing so, we're gonna go to the page.ts.tsx, and here we're going to add the Poppins class name that we just created into the global.css. And as you can see, after doing so, so the font changed successfully in our page. Next, I created this. So first, the first thing that I did, I created the container where we're gonna be putting all the design or the UI elements of our application. So as you can see, I started, of course, with the header of the application. So we're having here three elements. We're having the logo and the name of the application. We're having the search bar, and we're having the button. And of course, the background, it's gonna have this color. So notice here we're having in this header three elements, meaning that we're going to create three components. So let's go back to the VS Code, and the first thing that I did, so if we open up the Explorer folder, so I created the component folder. But first, before I wanna talk about the home page, before I start jumping into the header functional component. So the home page, so I'm going to talk about the GSX first. So we're having this div. So this div basically is this purple uh, color background. So of course we are going to use the Poppins utility class that we use to make sure that the font is set by using the Poppins font. So the width it's going to be full. So the height, I choose the high H screen utility class just to make sure that the height it's going to be equal to the height of the screen size that you are using. So next we're using the display as flex, the justify center, and the item center just to make sure that this box or this white container is going to be centered into the screen. And finally, we're using the background as a purple color. Then we're having this div, which is this white container. So the width is going to be 59%. I added already the relative position because we're going to create a drop down later on. So I want to make sure that this product, because this drop down is going to be absolute. So I'm using this relative position. So this drop down is going to stay within this container. So also I added this media query just to make sure that the width is going to be stretched a little bit out whenever the size of the window is a bit smaller. The height, so I choose to use the fixed height, which is 70-60 pixel. The background it's going to be white, and also I added a bit of shadow and also the rounded edges like this. A bit of padding, but also I added more padding at the left and at the right. So the next thing that we used, so we're going to call this header component, which is this whole part. And just to make sure that our code is clean and readable, I created this header in another functional component, and I called it, or I imported it from this path just to be able to use this header functional component. And if we head over this functional component, as you can see, like our code is much more readable and cleaner if you use it this way, rather than just using all the GSX in one place. So the first thing that before I start talking about how we can be able to create this, the first thing that I want to show you is we have a bunch of icons in here. As you can see, we're having three icons, this one and the search bar and the add icon. So basically what I'm doing, I'm using the M icons library. So it's a very popular library to use, but also it has a lot of icons. And so to be able to use it first, we need to install this library. So head over this page and copy this. So if you're using the npm package, installer, sorry, so copy this line and so we're going to delete this and paste it in here. So I've already done this, so I'm not gonna install it again. Otherwise, if I do so, nothing bad is going to happen. So after installing this, so the first thing that we need to do, we need to import all of these icons. So those are the icons that I choose for myself for this application. Then we are going to create uh, this nav tag with this class name. So those are the utility classes that are basically simple. We're using the display flex, the justify between, and the item center. So the reason why we are using the justify between, so we can have them positioned like this automatically. So without having to actually change manually the positions of each component. So justify between, it's going to do all of this for us and it's going to be done automatically. And so here, as you can see, I created some inner functional components. So I'm not going to create other files for these functional components, just to make sure that our projects is not going to have a lot of files and it's not going to be overwhelming for us. So let's start talking about the logo section. If we open this up, so that's the actual GSX of the logo section. So this for this parent div, so we're using the flex and a little bit of gap and the item center. And inside of it, we're using two elements. We're using the icon and we're using the app name. So for the icon, so this is what I did to be able to create this icon. So this for this rectangle. So the background it's going to be purple, flex item center, justify center, just to make sure that the icon it's going to be centered inside this rectangle like this. And I'm adding a little bit of padding and the rounded or the border radius it's going to be this 8 pixel. Just make sure that the edges are rounded like this. Then we're having the actual icon. So inside this icon, I created this div, and then I put in inside of it the icon from the MUI. So notice here we're using this built-in property SX to be able to actually style this icon or any MUI library. So they are using the same pattern. And inside of it, we are going to use the font size property and the class name. We're using the text white to make sure that the icon is white. And finally, let's untoggle this. We're gonna have the app or the name of the application. So we're having two uh, two spans. We're having this for this phrase and this one for this phrase. I've done this just because I want to make sure that the first text, it's gonna have the color purple. And also I'm using the flex and a little bit of gap and the text size it's going to be this just to make sure that they're going to be aligned like this. Then if we go to the search bar, so the search bar, so this is how I created it. So the first thing we're having this parent div. So I added this just to make sure that we're going to have this color like this. So I set the height as 49 or 46 pixel. The background is going to be slate. And also I'm using the flex display, the item center, and the text size. It's going to be like this by using the text hyphen sm utility class. The rounded edges will be like this, where they're going to be 6 pixel. Also, I'm adding a little bit of padding at the left. The gap is going to be 44 pixel, just to make sure that the search are uh, are aligned are aligned with the input, and the width it's going to be 300 pixel. And inside of it, we're going to use the icon, and we're going to use the input. And the input, it's going to have all of these utility classes. And notice here, we're using the background as transparent, just to make sure that it's going to take the background of the parent div. So that's for the search bar. And finally, we're going to go to the button. So the button is pretty simple. So those are the utility classes. So of course, we're going to use the button tag. This is for the background. And also we're using a little bit of gap because we're having two elements. We're having the add icon and the span for the new expense text. So also we're having the text, this utility class for the size, the rounded edges, the text going to be white, and also we're making sure that all of these elements are going to be centered uh, horizontally, justify center, and also I'm adding a little bit of padding at the right, and when we hover over the actual button, so the color is going to be changing like this, and we did use this for that. And finally, we're having all these elements, this for the add button or add icon, and this for the new expense phrase. And of course, to be able to use these functions, we're adding them inside the nav bar. And next, I added this part. So this is for choosing the wallet that we want. And later on, we're going to create a drop down. Just when we click on this, we're gonna be able to choose the drop down, but also we're going to be able to add and delete the drop down just from, or the wallet just from this drop down. And finally, we're having the clear all just to be able to clear all the expenses. So let's go back to the VS Code, and the first thing that I did inside the main page folder, I created this subheader, which is this whole part. So here, as you can see, I'm creating other functional components. So the wallet options is for this part, and the clear all button is for this part. So I set everything up like this just to make sure, as I said, the code is much more readable. So when we start making this functionable, it's going to be very easy to us to make this application functionable. So the first thing that I did, I added a little bit of margin. So we're having 90 pixel just to make sure that we're having more space between the main header and this section. Then we're going to use the flex display and justify between. So justify between, it's going to position these two elements like this automatically. And so let's go over the wallet options. And in this functional component, so we're using these utility classes. So we're having a little bit of border. So the border is going to be 1 pixel just to make sure that we're having this border like this. We're having some padding, and the border radius, it's going to be 6 pixel, flex, item center, and a little bit of gap just to make sure that we're going to have some space between the icon and the home wallet text and the cursor. So we added this cursor just to make sure when we hover over the element, we're going to have this cursor pointer icon. So we're going to use this from MUI library, and so we're setting the font size as 27 pixel. So this for the span, and this for the actual arrow icon. And the font size, it's going to be small. And I added a little bit of margin at the top just to make sure that this, so I pushed it a little bit down because it was up and it wasn't aligned with all of these elements. So that's why I used the margin top. It's going to be 40 pixel and this for this color. And finally, we're having the clear button. So those are the utility classes for the clear for the button. So we are using pretty much the same utility classes that we did for the other button. Um, I added the transition just to make sure that we're gonna have the smooth transition when we hover over the clear button, as you can see. So we're to move from the white color to the slate color. So um, we're gonna have this actual transition. So I'm gonna get rid of this because the media queries, I'm gonna use them later on when we start making this application responsive. And the final thing that we are going to add into the main page of our application is this part. So we're having the header list or the header list for expenses, and also we're going to have the component to be able to show the expenses. So here for each expense, we're going to have the icon, we're going to have the name of the expense, we're going to have the wallet where this expense has been added to, of course, the amount of the expense, the icon to be able to modify the expense, or the delete button. So let's go back to the VS Code. And what we're going to do first, we're going to create the components needed into the folders, the components folder. So the first thing that I did is I created the all expenses functional component. So this all expenses functional components is going to be used in the home functional component, so you can be able to show it into the browser. So let's go back to the all expenses functional component, and as you can see, it is composed from two elements, from this part and from this part to be able to show the expenses. So for the list header, we're going to have the date, and also we're going to have the transactions and value. And as you can see, we are putting each part in its own div because we want to make sure that are going to be uh, are going to be positioned like this. So and to be able to do so, we're using the justify between again. And also here into the transactions and value, um, we are putting them inside this div just to make sure that these two elements are inside one div. And so those are the utility classes for the list header. So for the main div, which uh, has all of these elements, we're going to use the flex display, the justify between, as I said, and a little bit of margin at the bottom just to be able to create more space between the list and this list header, and a little bit of padding left and right. And here the next thing that we need to do, we need to create a div, and inside of it, we're going to create the date, and those are the utility classes for this, and this for the transactions add value. And as you can see, we're using the flex and the gap, a little bit of gap, just to make sure that we're going to have space between the number of transaction and value. The text is going to be 13 pixel, and we made it a little bit bold, and those are the span or the text that we are using. And next we're having the expenses list. So the expenses list, it's going to have also another functional component, which is the single expense. So this component was created in another file. And the reason to do so, because first, as I said, want to make sure that our code is clean and readable, but also when we start working with data, with local data, with the area to be able to show the information. So it's going to be very, very easy to us to be able to use the component because we're going to create a map. We're going to use a map function, so we'll be able to iterate through the array, and we're going to use the single expense functional component to be able to show and render all of the expenses lists based on the information inside the data or the array that we created. So here, as you can see, I created another functional component. I called it single expense, which is this one. And also we imported it from here. So let me delete all of these icons. And so let's go to the single expense. So that's the functional component. So as you can see, we're having a lot of things in here because a lot of items that I added inside this list. So let me untoggle this just to make sure that everything is, we can be able to see our code. So we're going to start from the parent div. So we made the width as full. So the background is going to be white because we're going to use a little bit of border in here. So this is what I did. So the border, the color is going to be this one, a little bit of shadow, and also we're using again the justify between because these elements are going to be inside one div and these are going to be inside one div, and just to make sure that they are going to be positioned like this automatically, we added the justify between, a little bit of padding, and I added more padding into the left, into the top and the bottom. So next we are gonna have another div. So this div is for the icon and the name of the expense and the wallet. And as you can see, we're using the flex and the gap and the item center. So this is for the wallet icon. This is for the wallet name. So for the wallet icon, it's going to be also added in another div with these utility classes. And we're adding the icon from the MUI. So that's the icon that I did, that I added. And this part is for the wallet name. And to make sure that they are going to be lined up like this, so we're going to use the flex and the flex column because we're having here, if I untoggle this, we're having here two elements, the expense name and we're having the wallet or the wallet span. And to make sure that they are going to be lined up like this, we're using the flex column or the flex direction as column. And finally, we're having these two buttons. So we are creating this div and it's going to have these utility classes. And so here we're having the first the span to be able to show the actual expense. And for the buttons, we added them inside another div. And in this div, we're having these buttons. So these buttons are going to use the same utility classes. So normally, the best thing to do is to not use the buttons like this. We need to use a map or an array to be able to make sure that our code is not going to be lengthy like this. And but also we can be able to know very clearly what we are going to do. So this is how I created the button. So the only difference that we're having here is the background of each button. So this for the edit and button is going to be purple and this for the delete button. So the only thing that I'm changing in here are the colors. So for the edit icon, the text is going to be purple and this is going to be slate. And also I did the same thing for the background. So as you can see, so that's the actual design of our application. And also another thing that I want to show you, if we go back to the all expenses functional component and we add a bunch of expenses like this. So let me add more. So I want to show you one thing, like when we're having a lot of expenses like this, as you can see, we're having this scroll bar showing up. And the reason for that is because I'm using the overflow Y auto utility class. And as you can see, like creating a list like this, it's not feasible. So that's why, as I said, we're gonna start working with data. We're gonna use the map function to be able to show the list like this when we're having a lot of expenses. Next, we're gonna make this application responsive. And as you can see, when I shrink the size of the window like this. So many items into the header are gone. Just make sure that we're going to have more space and also make sure that the elements are not going to be overlapped each other. So I'm going to show you how to be able to do this, and it's very simple. So into the header.tsx, so we're going to go to the logo section first. And here we are going to play with the media query. And here, as you can see, we got rid from the app or the name of the application. And to be able to do this, we're going to use max-sm and it's going to be hidden, meaning that when we hit this 640 pixel, so this whole element is going to be hidden. And the next thing that I did for the search bar, as you can see, I stretched it out a little bit. So to be able to do this, um, or I make it a little bit smaller, sorry. So in this media query, so whenever we hit this number of pixels, so the width is going to be 220 pixel. So we can have more space in here and in here. Then finally for the button, so if we go over here, as you can see here, adding or changing the padding at the right when we are in this in this width, and also another thing that I'm doing, I'm getting rid from this whole span when we hit this 640 pixel. So this is basically how we can be able to do this. And finally, just to make sure that we're gonna have more space for the other elements like the expenses list. So I stretched it out a little bit, the width of the application. And to be able to do so, what I did here, I'm using 97% instead of using, I think I was doing 93%. And in here, the paddings and in the left and the right are going to be 30 pixel instead of 52 pixel, just to make sure that we're having more room to the list header and also for the expenses. So that's basically how I did to make sure that this is gonna look like this and the screens like this. And so far the application is looking so good. And the next thing that I'm going to do, I'm gonna create other components. And we're gonna start by the window to be able to add a new expense. So after creating the overall design of the application, next what we are going to do, we are going to create and add a new expense. So for this, we need the window to be able to input the information that we want, and this is what's happening. So when I click on the new expense button, as you can see, we're going to have this amazing button with this clean design. And here, as you can see, we're having the header, of course, with the closing button. So when we click on it, this window is going to be closed. We're having these inputs, the name of the expense and the amount of it. And also we're having this to be able to choose the icons. So now it's not functional, so I need to create a component to be able to select the icons. So I'm going to work on this. Then we're having the wallet selection. Also, this is not functionable yet because I need to create a drop down for this. And finally, we're having the footer with these two icons to be able to add an expense and cancel the operation. So when I click on the cancel, and also we're having the soft layer at the background whenever this is opened. When I click on the cancel, as you can see, it's going to be turned off. The same thing for the closing or icon. So let's go back to the VS Code. I'm going to explain how we did it. So the first thing that I did, I created this expense window functional component inside the Windows folder. So also we're going to create another window for the wallet. So that's why I put it inside the Windows, just to make sure that everything is organized when it comes to the structure of our project. So here is the functional component. So don't worry about this line. I'm going to explain it. But now let's focus on the JSX. So here, as you can see, we're using many utility classes to make this window. So I'm going to talk about the most important things. So the first one is we are using the absolute position because we want to use this window freely into the DOM. Then we are using the utility classes, this translate y and the left property, just to make sure that this is going to be always centered like this. So whenever we change in the window size, it's going to be centered. And notice that also the width of the window is going to be a little bit stretched out when we hit the 640 pixel, and because we're using this media query. So when we hit this amount of pixel, the width is going to be 82%. We're using the z-index 50 because we need this to be at the top of all the elements. So when we're going to use the soft layer, so we're not going to have any problems. So those are the basic and the most important utility classes for the div for this window, and the other ones are pretty easy, and I already explained them in previous components. So now let's head into the header. I'm gonna talk about the organization of our window, and as you can see, we're gonna make sure that we are following the best practices using React. So this is what we are doing. And just to make sure that the code is cleaner, so we are going to each part is going to be created in its own functional component. Like for the header, so that's its own functional component. So here, so there are like it is a pretty simple GSX. So we're having this main element, parents div. Then we're creating another div for this one for the category icon, sorry, for the, because I took it from another project, so I didn't change the names. So let me change the name, the comments like this. So as I said, we're having the icon and also we're having the add expense in the span tag. Finally, we're having the closing icon. So I'm going to get into the on-click event listener when we start talking about the context API, and I'm going to explain what it is. Then we're having the expense input, which is this part. So this part we're having the we're having the expense name, and we're having inside of it the actual input and the button to be able to click on it so you can be able to choose the icon. So this part is for the input and this part is for the icon. Then we move on to the amount, and this is the GSX of the amount input. So pretty much we're using the same logic or the same design for the expense input, except that we're not using the icon at the bottom. Then we're having the wallet section. So this is how we are going to create this wallet section. And finally, we're having the footer. The footer is going to have two buttons. So this is for the cancel button and this is for the add button. And those are the utility classes as you can see. So I'm not going to go over them because I already explained these in the main page of the application. So now I'm gonna move on to the most important thing, which is the context. So what is a context API in our application? So this is like, for example, we need to create a box in which we are going to store all the variables that all the child components can be able to use. So that's the advantage of using a context API. And that's going to solve the problem of the prop drilling. So we don't have to use, if we want to share variables inside all the child components, because as you can see right now in our project, so we have child components, and in each child component, we have another child component, just to make sure that we don't have to use these props to be able to share the variables. We're going to use a context that is going to wrap the whole application, and in it, we can be able to exchange all these variables. And and as we move on in our project, sorry, you will see the advantage of using the context API. So how to be able to create this context API? So I'm going to show you. So the first thing that I did, I created this app context.tsx. So let me clear that out to be able to see clearly the code. And here, make sure to add the use client, because in Next.js, all the components are by default are server components. So we need to use the use clients to make them client components. And here, the first thing that we need to do, we need to define an interface. Defining the shape of the context state. Because we're using TypeScript, we need to do so. Then we're going to create the default states for each variable that we're creating. So what is the default state of this variable? So this for the, because I'm creating the open expense variable, because this is what we're using to be able to open and close the window. So I need a setter, since we're using React, to be able to change the open expense window, and those are the default states, and those are the actual types of them. Then we're going to create this app provider. So this app provider is going to have a children prop, because we're going to use it into the layouts, and we are going to and the body tag is going to be wrapped between the app provider, so all the child components can be able to use all the variables that we are adding in here. And then we are going to return this app context provider. And all the variables that we are going to create, we need to add them into the value property. And then we're going to use a custom hook to be able to consume this hook and consume this context and other child components. So this is basically how we can be able to create um, this context. And also another thing that I want to share with you is like this. You don't have to memorize this whole code. So what I'm doing is I'm using this snippet saver. So by the way, that's an application that I create myself. So you can find the video, the full tutorial how to be able to create this application from start to finish, and it is a full stack application. And you can be able to store all your notes or your code. And this is what I'm doing. For example, I'm calling this global state management in React using context API. So what I'm doing here, I'm just storing it, and whenever creating a new application, all I have to do is just go here and copy and paste and do the modifications needed to be able to add this code without having to memorize it. So I will just share with you this if you want. So it's free, and you can use it to save some time, especially for the most important code, and you don't have to memorize everything. So after creating our context, the next thing that we're going to do, we're going to go to the layout.tsx, and we need to wrap our application with the app provider. So this is what I talked about. So make sure to add the app provider tag in here, and the body tag like route between this app provider. So after doing so, we're going to go to the um, so we're gonna go to the expense window. So let's go to all the way up into the header functional component. So here, let's go to the parents div. So to be able to use this open expense window, we need to consume it from the context by using the use app context. So this is what we are doing. So once we are not once we get the variable, the open expense window, we're gonna rely on it. Whether if it is true, we're going to use the block display. Otherwise, we're gonna use the hidden. And also, if we go to the header, so also we're gonna use the set open expense window just to make sure that the open expense window is gonna turn to false, and we are going to add it inside the on-click event listener. So whenever we click on this, it's going to turn to false. And since the parent div or the window is relying on the open expense window, so when it is false, this is going to be used, and then it's going to be hidden. So that's the logic behind opening and closing the window. And also, if we go all the way down at the footer, also we're going to use the set open expense window inside the on-click event listener of the cancel button to be able to set it to false. And also to be able to open it up when we click on the add new expense, what we are going to do, we are going to go to the main page folder inside the components folder. We're going to go to the we're going to go to the header, then we're going to go to the button, and here we are going to use the set open expense window as well. And here we are going to link it to the on-click event listener of the button. So now you can see the advantage of using the so just one variable, it can be used between all child components without having to use prompts. So that's going to make your code much robust and much cleaner and with less issues. So this is how we can be able to create this window, open it up and close it. And the final thing that I was going to forget is the shadow or the soft layer. So how we can be able to create this, go to the page.tsx, and here we're going to create this div. So this div, it's gonna also be relying upon the open expense window. So only if it is true, then we are going to use this div. And this is how we can be able to create this soft layer. So we're making the width 100%, also the height. The z-index is gonna be 40. So make sure to make the z-index lesser than the window, so it's gonna be so it doesn't be at the top of the window. The background is going to be black, and we added some opacity to make it soft. And also we're using the fixed position. So this is basically how we can be able to create this little window and open it up and close it, and also the soft layer. So right now, as we move on, we're going to use extensively the context API because we're going to have a lot of variables, and it's going to be very handy to us to make things a lot easier. Then I created the icon window. So when I click on this button, as you can see, we're going to have this awesome icon or this awesome window to be able to choose the icon. And all of these icons are from the MUI library. So if we click on the closing button, as you can see, it's going to be closed. The same thing if we do for the cancel button. So let's go back to the VS Code. I'm going to show you everything that I did. So the first thing that we need to do, we need to create our component. So inside the Windows folder, I added this icons window. So I'm going to walk you through step by step everything that I did to be able to create this component. So here, as you can see, I'm going to use the same pattern that I did to be able to create the components. So we're having three functional components. So we're having the header. So that's the header that we're going to use. So I'm not going to get into this because I'm going to use the same logic and the same structure that I did for the other for the window headers, like the expense window. So after that, we're having so I need to change this into span tag, not a div. Then we're gonna have the icon area. So the icon area it's this all this container. So I'm going to show you how to be able to do so. So when I click on the icons area, as you can see, so instead of showing all the icons in here, so we're going to use them from another functional component, which is the all icons. So if we click on the all icons, as you can see, we're having this all icons functional uh, components that uses the all icons array that also we put it inside the context API because we want to use it in other child components. So here, as you can see, we're having this GSX and we're going to use a map function. So a map function to be able to iterate through this array. So if I go all the way up, as you can see, so this is the area of the icon that we are using, and it is a pretty long array. So that's why I created this in another functional component rather than putting it inside here. So I want to make sure that this functional component is not lengthy, and also we don't have a lot of text into this functional component. So that's why I added it in here. And notice that uh, the object inside the all icons array. So for each element, we're having the ID, the icon, the name, and the is selected. So we're adding the is selected just to be able to make sure that we can be able to select the icon. So we're gonna work on this later on. But for now, we want to build our window to be able to choose the icon. So this is the logic that I did to be able to use this or to create this window. So we are going to use the map function so we can be able to iterate through each icon. And then for each icon to be able to render it, we're going to use this div. So here, for as I showed you for each object, so it's going to be the single icon. So here we're going to use the single icon. So if the single icon is selected, so it's going to turn the background, it's going to be purple and the text is going to be white. Otherwise, the background is going to be white and the text is going to be purple. And here we're using the icon inside this div, which is a React node. And those are the utility classes. So for each icon, uh, where the width and the height, it's going to be the same. It's going to be for 36 pixel, and those are for the other utility classes to be able to style the each icon like this. So that's how we can be able to create our icon window. So now I'm going to show you how to be able to use this all icons. So this all icons, as you can see, we're using it from the context, our context. So in here, as you can see, we are creating the all icons array, and inside of it, we are going to assign it the all icons array, which is this array that we created. And if we go all the way up in here, as you can see, we are exporting it so you can be able to use it in other functional components. And one of them is the context API. So once we created this, we need to add it inside the default state, but also in the app state, and then into the value property so you can be able to use it in child components like the all icons. So this is how we can be able to create the all icons array. Then, then we are going to create the state to be able to open or close the icons window. So here, if we go back to the context API, so we created the open icon window, and also make sure to add it inside the default state, but also in the app context and also in the value property. So once we did this, we're going to go back to the icon window, and at the top, we need to call the set open icon window from the context because we want to use it to be able first to close it, to use it inside with the close icon button. So when we click on it, it's going to be set to false, and the same for the button that is existing inside this window. Also, it's going to be set to false. And if we go back to the um, so if we go to the all the way up, the open icon, it's going to be inside the class name. So we're going to use it as a turning operator. So if it is true, we're going to use block. Otherwise, we're going to use the hidden to be able to hide the actual window. And also finally, we're going to go to the expense window. And also we need to use the set open icon window and set it to true whenever we click in on this icon. So this is what is going to trigger the opening of the icon. So hopefully that I've been able to explain this, but as you can see, it is a pretty long process. So I did my best to be able to explain this. So as you can see right now, the only thing that it is left for this window is to be able to create the wallet drop down. So the next thing that I created is the drop down. So that's going to be the final design of the drop down. So we're going to have the add button, and also we're going to have the wallets. So the reason why I want to show you first the drop down is because this drop down is going to be used both by the wallet selection from the application from the main page, but also we're going to use it in here. So just to avoid having duplicate components, so we're going to use them both in here, and we're going to work on the logic, how we can make sure that, for example, for this, we don't have to show this add button, and the only thing that we need to show is the wallets. So we're going to work on that, of course, but first I want to just show you the design and how to be able to create this drop down first. So if we go back to the VS Code, so I created a new folder and I called it drop downs. And here I created the wallet drop down. So in this functional component, so we're having two main child components. We're having the add button and the wallet list. So for the add button, as you can see, so that's the JSX of it. And in the wallet list, we're having this that incorporates two functional components that are single list. Of course, this is going to be changed depending on the array that we are going to create later on. But the first thing that we need to do, we need to create the design and how it's gonna look like. So, and if we go to the single list, so let's open this up, and I'm going to show you all the elements that we added to be able to create that kind of design. So we're having the icon, the name of the wallet, and the delete button. So like for example, the delete button, it's going to be only shown inside the application or the main page. But when we click on the add new, I want to select a new wallet in here for the expense. So the add button, it's going to be hidden, and the same thing for the delete button. Only the delete button is going to be shown into the main page. So we're going to work on this. So let's go back to the single page. So this is the actual component. So we're having this for the main box of the dropdown of the main container. So we're having this for the icon and the name of the wallet. Then we're having the delete button, and those are the that's the JSX of it. So we're having the delete outline icon from the MUI to be able to show this delete icon. So now what we are going to do, we are going to make this drop down functionable. But the first thing that we need to do, we need to make it openable. So whenever we click on this, it's going to be opened at this position. And also if we click on here, also it's going to be opened at this position. So let's work on this. So the first step that we need to create is to be able to open up the drop down and close it whenever we click outside of it. So for example, when I click on here, as you can see, it's going to be opened. When I click outside of it, it's going to be closed. The same thing if I do in this selection. So when I click on here, it's going to be opened. When I click outside of it, it's going to be closed. So the first thing that we need to do, we need to create this logic before we can do other things with the drop down. So let's go back to the VS Code. And the first thing that I did, I created this open wallet drop down like this inside the context API and make sure to add it inside the value property, but also inside the default state and the app state interface. So after doing so, we're going to go to the wallet dropdown and we need to call the open wallet dropdown and the set open wallet dropdown. So the first thing that we are going to do, we're going to use this open wallet dropdown inside the class name. So if it is true, we're going to use the block position. Otherwise, we're going to use hidden to be able to hide the actual open dropdown. And also to be able to make the, whenever we click outside of the dropdown, it's going to be closed. We're going to use this use effect hook. So this is the logic or the code that we're using to be able to do so. So the first thing that we're going to do, we're going to create this drop-down ref just to be able to reference and to link the reference to the drop-down so we can be able to know whether we clicked on the actual drop down or not. So here we're using this use effect hook. So whenever this component is mounted, we're going to add these event listeners. And when it is unmounted, we're going to remove the event listener. And all of that's going to be dependent upon these two variables. So if it is open, so if um, when we click outside of it, this is going to be triggered and we're going to trigger this handle clicked outside. So we're going to make sure that the drop-down ref.current is not null. Then we're going to make sure that if we click on the contain or the drop-down, if we don't click, meaning that if we click outside of it, we're going to set the open wallet drop-down to false. So this is basically um, how we can be able to create that kind of thing. And also just to let you know, because this code you can be able to use it in many projects. So what I did, I just saved it inside this snippet saver and I just used it and I just copy and paste and just did the modification needed to be able to make this working for this application. So you can be able to use this application at the link in the description below. So it's totally free. So you can be able to save your snippets and reuse them in other projects. So this is how we can be able to handle this when we click outside of the dropdown. So the next thing that we are going to do, we are gonna go to this component, and when we click on this, we're going to set the open wallet dropdown to true. So it's very easy. So what we're going to do, we're going to go to the subheader inside the main page. And now, as you can see, so it's going to be very, very easy to us. So we can be able to do the modifications later on because we structured our project well. And also we created in each part, created it inside its own functional components. So here in the wallet options, we're going to call the set open wallet dropdown from the context API. So when we click on this, we're going to set it to true so we can be able to open the dropdown. And the same thing if we need to go to the wallet or the expense window, and we're going to go to the wallet section and we're going to do the same thing. So this is how we can be able to create this logic. So the next thing that I need to work on is the position, meaning that when I click on here, this needs to be positioned right below this component, and the same thing if I click on this. So now when we click on our personalized menu section, as you can see, we're going to have the drop down opened up right where we clicked. And the best part is when we click on the add new expense and we click on this, as you can see, it's going to be opened up in this position, but also it's going to take the full width of this menu selection, which is cool. So let's go back to the VS Code. I'm going to show you how to be able to create this. And this, the logic that I'm going to show you, or the overall logic that we created, it's going to work for any drop-down that you want to create. So once you master this logic, so it's going to be very handy for you to be able to create drop-downs for other projects. So let's go to the app context, and here we're creating another variable called wallet dropdown positions. So this is going to accept the top and the left, but also, so those are the variables or parameters uh, that are mandatory. And if we go up in here, when we set our types, as you can see, we're adding the width as optional parameter because we want to use it just in the expense window. So that's why we did so. And that's the advantage of using TypeScript. So I highly encourage you to really learn TypeScript as much as you can. And also that's going to save you a lot of time, a lot of headaches later on to be able to avoid bugs, especially when the application gets more complex. So after creating the variables and the types like this inside the app state interface, but also inside the default state, and also adding them inside the value, the next thing that we are going to do, we're going to go to the actual wallet dropdown, and in here we are going to use the wallet drop-down position that we clicked or that we created from the context API, and then we are going to use the inline properties of the div of the drop-down, and we're going to add for the top, we're going to add the top property. For the left, we're going to add the left, and for the width, we're going to add the width property from the wallet drop-down position. So that's the first thing. And the next, so whenever we, so the idea is whenever we click on this, we need to extract the position of this menu selection. Then we are going to assign it to the drop-down positions. So that's how it's going to work. So let's go to the sub header. And here in the wallet options functional component, what we're doing, we are going to use the set all wallet drop-down positions. And to be able to really extract the top and the left positions of this menu selection, so what we are going to do, we're going to create this handle click function that is going to be assigned to the on-click event listener. First, we're going to open up the drop-down, and we're going to use the get bounding client rect function to be able to extract the top and the left position from the menu selection that we clicked on. And also we are creating the wallet options ref, and we are assigning it to the reference of this div just to be able to reference or access to the menu selection and to the dump, so you can be able to extract the top and the left properties. And this is what we are doing. So after extracting the top and the left properties, we are going to assign it to the set to the wallet drop-down positions. So this is how we can be able to extract the positions top and left. And also another thing that we're going to do, we're going to go to the expense window. So here, as you can see, we're using the same logic. So the only difference here, we're going to use the width. So because we want here the drop down to be extended to the width of this menu selection. So this is what we did. So we extract also the width from the get bounding client rect, and we added it inside the width. So that's why we use the width property as optional, so we can be able to use it if we want to. So if we didn't, if we use it as a mandatory property, so we're going to have an error. So that's why we added this mark question when we set the typing of this variable state. And also we're creating the wall selection ref in here. And also we are assigning to the ref property of the actual menu selection that we clicked on. So this is how we can be able to create the menu, to create the drop down, to handle the closing and the opening of it, but also to be able to position it right where we clicked on it. And the next component that I added is the wallet window to be able to add or edit a wallet. So if I click on the add um, item, as you can see, we're going to have this simple icon or simple window, sorry, to be able to add the wallet. And also here we can be able to open up the icon window that we created for the expense window. Actually, what I did, I just took the window from the expense window and I got rid from the two elements, the input for the amount and for the menu selection. And I changed the text. So instead of using expense, I used wallet. And so let's go back to the VS Code, sorry. Let's go back to the VS Code. And the first thing that we need to do, we need to create our wallet window component. So basically what I did, I just copied what is in the expense window and I got rid from the expense amount. So if we go back to the expense window, so we're having the amount and the wallet section selection. So I just got rid of this and as you can see here into the header, I added wallet and into the express input, I added enter wallet name and also the same thing in here. And if we go all the way down at the bottom in the button, as you can see, I added add wallet where I changed wallet with expense. So for the other elements, they are still the same. So the next thing that I'm going to show you the logic to be able to open and close the actual window. So I'm going to use the same logic that we did for the expense window and also for the drop down. So we need to create this open wallet window variable and it's going to be false and we need to add it into the value property. Then if we go to the wallet window in here into the add button function, as you can see, I added the set open wallet window to be able to open it up. And here when we click, when we um, use the onClick event listener, we're going to open it up to set it as true. Then we're going to close the wallet dropdown. And also into the wallet window, we're going to use this open window, wallet window into the parent div and this ternary operator. So, and also in the wallet window, we are going to go to the header first into the close icon. Also, we're going to use the set open wallet window to be able to close it. And the same thing at the bottom into the footer inside the cancel button. And also make sure to go to the page.tsx and add the wallet window so you can be able to see it into the browser. And also we're adding this to be able to show the actual soft layer behind the window. So also if the open expense window or the open wallet window are opened or are true, then we are going to show this soft layer. So basically now we created all the UI components and also we added a little bit of code to make some of the components functionable. So the next thing that we're going to do, we're going to start working with the data with and we need to create the structure of the wallet and the expense so we can be able to add them, editing them and delete them. So after creating all the UI components of this application, the next thing that I added is the data, meaning that we created the expenses and the wallet so you can be able to use them and show them into our application. So like just to show you, for example, if we open up the console log, so and if I reload the page, so as you can see, we are waiting just for a little bit and then we're having all of the data. So this for the wallet and this for the expenses. And but I want to first show you how to be able to create this before we start using them and show them into the UI. So let's go back to the VS Code and we're gonna head towards the local data. And here I created these two files. So the first one is the all wallet. So that's gonna be the structure of each wallet. It's gonna be the ID, of course, the name and the icon. And here, so that's the array. I called it wallets data, and we need to export it to be able to use it in our context. And here we're using this package to be able to generate the IDs. So make sure first to install the package. So just add the npm I UID and then make sure to install the types since we're using the Typescript and add this import and then you can be able to add the function to generate IDs. So that's for the all wallets and let's move on to the expenses. So for the expenses case, it's going to be a little bit different. So we're going to have the ID, the name, the wallet name, and just to know the expense or where the expense lives, we're having the icon and the amount. The amount is going to be the number, of course. And this is the example that I used for the expenses data array. And of course, it's going to have the expenses interface and also make sure to export this interface because we're going to use it inside the context API to simulate the fetching of the data. So you can use whatever example you want. So then we're going to go to the app context. And here, this is where we're going to simulate the fetching of the data. So let me delete this. So I use this from another project that I'm working on right now, and I'm gonna release it probably in the next week. Anyway, so let's go back to our project. Here I'm using the use effect hook, and I'm creating this function. So also I'm adding this is loading state because we're gonna use it to be able to create the loading spinner and our project and simulating the fetching or the network delay from the database. So we're going to set it as true. Then we're going to create a new promise. So this is how we are going to simulate this network delay. Then we are update the all expenses and the all wallets variable states. And finally, we're going to set the is loading to false. So here we're going to call the function fetch data. So also make sure to add the all wallets and the all expenses area like this, and also make sure to add them into the default state and also make sure to add them into the value property because we're gonna need this and use them in other components to be able to show the wallet like the drop down and the expenses list that we are using into the main page of our application. So this is basically how we can be able to first create the data structure and simulate the fetching of the data and store them into the array so you can be able to use them into the application. So after creating the data, now it's time to show the data into our UI. And as you can see here, we're showing all the expenses with their information except the icon because I need to create a function. So I'm going to work on this to be able to convert the icon from the text to the MUI icon. But as you can see right now, we can be able to show all the expenses from the all expenses area. So I'm going to show you how to be able to do this. So let's go back to VS Code. And the first thing that we're going to do, we're going to go to the all expenses. So inside the all expenses, inside the main page folder, we are going to call the all expenses from the context, our context that we created for the application. Then we are going to use a map function to be able to iterate through this all expenses, which is an array. And for each expense, we are going to call this single expense component. And that is going to accept the single expense, which is the object. And inside the single expense functional component, so we're going to add this prompt. Single expense, that's going to have the type single expense. Then what we're going to do, we're going to spread all the properties across the GSX. So here for the name, so we're going to add the name, and here for the wallet, to be able to add the wallet name where the single expense is. And finally, we're going to show the amount of uh, each expense. So here, as you can see, we're adding some backticks so we can be able to add this minus sign and also the dollar sign in here between the curly braces. So this is basically how we can be able to show the expense in our UI. So the next thing that I'm going to do, I'm going to create the function to be able to convert the icon. Like, so if we open up the array, I need to convert this icon to the MUI icon so you can be able to use it and show it in here. So after adding the expenses into our list, so now um, all of these icons are coming from each expense, meaning that each object that we're having, so we're going to take its icon and we're going to convert it into the MUI icon, and this is what we are doing. So as you can see, each icon is related to the name of the expense. So let's go back to the VS Code. I'm going to show you how to be able to create this. So the first thing that we're going to do, we need to create a function to be able to convert that or do this conversion. And one way to do so, I created a function or a folder called it functions because we're going to add other functions here. And in here, we're going to add this icons action.tsx. And the reason why we're using TSX is because we're going to return a React node, which is the MUI icon. So here we're going to use just a switch statement, and this function is going to accept the name of the icon, and based on the name, we're going to return its specific or related icon. So as you can see, we are importing all the icons that we are going to use from MUI, and here we are creating this long switch, and I used AI to be able to create this faster. And as you can see, we are for this, for example, we're going to return this icon. So for each name that is in the icon property, it's going to be converted depending on the name that we found in here. And if some reason we don't find any name, we are going to return the, so if we go all the way down, we're going to turn the help icon. So this is basically how we can be able to create this function, and this function is going to be used also for the wallet when we want, for example, to show the icon in here. So we're going to use the same function. And the next thing that I adjusted is the list header. So here, as you can see, we're having real data. So this for the date, which is the current date, uh, the number of transactions, because we're having 10 transactions, and also the value. So we're calculating the total amount of the expenses, and also we're using some formatting to be able to format the amount like this. So let's go back to the VS Code and I'm going to show you how to be able to do so. So make sure to go to the allexpenses.tsx. So here first we are going to use the all expenses from the context API. And the first thing that I want to show you first, I want to show you the functions to be able to format the date and the currency. So basically, this is the function. So we're going to accept the date as a date object. Then we're going to use this to be able to convert the date into the format that we want. And the same thing that for the currency. So those are just, I got them from the ChatGPT. So um, there's no need to remember all of these functions. And next, what we are going to do, we are going to go back to the list header, and then we're going to store the result of the date and the total value. And here inside the format currency, we're going to use the total amount of the expenses. So we're using the reduce function to be able to calculate this. Then we're going to take the return value to the format currency so you can be able to do the formatting. Then we're going to store it inside the total value. Then we're going to use these variables. So here the current date and the date span, and here we're going to use them into their spans, their respective spans. So this for the length. So we're going to just use the length property to calculate. It's going to calculate automatically the number of all expenses. Then we're going to use the total value variable in here. And that's how we can be able to create that. And the next operation that I added, since we're having our list or the expense in the list. So next we can be able to delete the actual list or actual expense, sorry. So when we click on the delete button, so we're going to have this little window asking the user to really delete this expense. So when we click on delete, so we're going to have this deleting phrase simulating the request, sending the request to the database, and then the actual list is going to be deleted. And notice the values in here are changing as well. So the number of transactions right now is 8, but also as you can see the value of or the total of the expenses also changed. So let's go back to the VS Code. I'm going to show you how to create this. So the first thing that I created is this confirmation window. So that's the window that the actual component that we're gonna use to be able to um, ask the user whether you want to delete the actual expense. So that's the GSX. So we're having all of these utility classes. And also notice here we're using the 38% of the width. So when this or when the size of the window become like this, it's going to be stretched out so you can be able to see clearly what's in the window. And we're adding a little bit, so the top is going to be 30%, and also we're adding these utility classes to make sure that the window always going to stay at the center. Then we're having this div. So the first element in here, we're having the h2 tag, the delete the expense title. Then we're having a little bit of text in here. Then we're having the two buttons, the cancel button and the delete button. So let's talk about how we can be able to delete the task. So how we can know that the task that we clicked on, it's the task that we are going to delete. So that's why I use this logic. If we go to the app context, I created another variable called the selected expense alongside with the open confirmation window so you can be able to rely on it whether we are going to show the window or not. So the same thing that we did for the other windows. And here, we're going to use this to be able to uh, assign the actual expense that we want to delete. So first it's going to be null by default. And also make sure to add them into the default states because we're going to use this into the confirmation window, but also we're going to use this into the single expense. So I'm going to explain that to you. So after creating the selected expense and adding it inside the value property, the next thing that we're going to do, we're going to go to the single expense. So the single expense is the actual, this is this part or the expense that has all the elements in here. So the first thing that we are going to do, we are going to add these variables, and we're going to go to the action buttons, and we're going to go to the delete button. So I created this open window to delete. So this function, if we go to this function, the first thing that we're going to do, we're going to assign the single expense that we clicked on to the selected expense. Then we are going to open up the confirmation window. Also make sure to add this to be able to change the state and open up and show the window or the confirmation window. So after doing this, so now we can know which expense that we are going to delete because we are using the selected expense variable. So once we are into the confirmation window, so we have two functions. We're having this for the cancel button, and we're having for the delete expense function. So if we go to the delete expense, so I want to make sure that the selected expense is not null, and then we're going to use the try and catch block. And notice here, we're using this is loading state. As you noticed, when I click on the delete button, so we're having the editing phrase, just simulating, as I said, the sending the request to the database to delete the actual expense. So this is what we're doing to be able to do so. So we already used this into the context API, so you can be able to simulate the fetching of the data. So we're going to use the same thing. And here we are going to update the all expenses just to be able to get rid from the expense that we deleted from the all expenses area. And also make sure to add the all expenses and the set all expenses in here. Then we're going to close our window. And of course, if an error happens, we're gonna log it out. Then we're going to set the is loading to false. So now we are going to use the is loading state into the button when we click on the delete button. So when we click on the button, it's going to be set to true. That's why we're having the deleting phrase or text. Then it's going to be set to false when it's going to be set to deleted when the is loading is false. So hopefully that I explained how this logic is working. So now we need to add a way to be able to notify the user when the delete of the expense happens. And that's why we're going to use the React Hot notification library. Not only we are going to use it for the deletion, but also for the editing and add in whether the expense or the wallet. So the next thing that I added is the notification when the user deletes the actual expense. So the library that we are going to use, so we're going to use this famous library called React Hot Toast to be able to show the actual notification. So I'm going to show you how things are working. So when I click on the delete button and we click on the delete, so we're going to have this awesome notification popping up saying to the user that the expense has been deleted. And also another thing that I added is for the clear all. So when we click on this button, notice now the title changed to all expenses, but also this also changed rather than using to remove this expense, we're having the remove all the expenses. And when we click on the delete button, so all the expenses are going to be deleted. And also notice that right now all expenses have been deleted. So also the message is going to change based on what we clicked on. So I'm going to show you how first to install the library, the notification library. So the first thing that we're going to do, we're going to go to the page.tsx and make sure first, something that I forgot first, make sure to install the library. So that's the command line npm install react hot toast. So after installing this, so we're going to add it like this. So we're going to import the toaster object, and then we're going to add it in here into the home functional component, which is the parent component of the whole application. Then, as you can see, something that I forgot to mention, make sure to add the confirmation window component so you can be able to use it into our DOM. So after doing so, we're gonna go to the confirmation window. But before that, I want to show you the logic that I used to know whether I clicked on the clear all button and the delete of this single expense. So to be able to do this, I created another variable state. I called it is clicked all clear all. So that's the variable state that we're going to rely upon to know whether we clicked on this button or not. And also make sure to add it into the default state and also into the value property in here. As you can see, we added it inside the is clicked clear all object. So after doing this, what we're going to do, we're going to go to the button here and we're going to go to the sub header functional component. And in here, we're adding the set is clicked clear all, but also the open confirmation window to be able to modify this variable so that the window will be opened. So whenever we click on the button, so we're going to set this to true and also this to true. After doing this, we're going to go to the actual confirmation window. And also here, make sure to add the is clicked clear all, the variable that we just created. So here we're going to do a slight modification into the delete expense, but also into the close the window. So when we click on the cancel, we want to make sure that the is clicked clear all is set to false. Uh, Also, in the delete expense, so I did a slight modification as I said. So here we are going to check if the is clicked clear all variable is true. We're going to update the all expenses, but by an empty array. Otherwise, we're going to check first the selected expense is not null because that's the default value of the selected expense. Then we're going to update, as I showed you, the all expenses. And also that's something very important. Make sure to add this to set this to false, but also the selected expense need to set back to null. And here we are going to use the this if statement to know um, which message that we are going to use to show into the toast. And to be able to use the toast, we're going to just add the toast object. So if this is still true, we're going to use this phrase. Otherwise, we're going to use this phrase for the single expense. And also if we go here at the bottom to be able to change the text, what we are going to do inside the h2 tag, we're going to use this statement. So if this is all, we're going to use the all word. And also we want to use the S at the end of the expense. So if we clicked on all, so we're going to do the same thing in here. And also we are doing it in this little paragraph. So also another thing that I need to change is this because I used it from another library another project, sorry. So this need to change as well because we are talking about the expense. So this is how we can be able to create this logic. And so that's pretty much it. So this is how we can be able to know whether we clicked on the all button or the single expense. And also when we start working with the wallet, we are going to come back to this confirmation window because we're going to use it for all the operation, the deleting operation, whether the wallet or the expense. So we're gonna come back to this again. We're going to do the adjustment needed once we start working with the wallet. So another thing that I need to create, and that's something very important. So when we don't have anything into any list, we need to add something in here just to get people to do the first action, which an empty placeholder. That's something that I'm going to create. Then I'll be back to explain how to create this. So the next thing that I added when we clear all the expenses, so when we click on delete, so after deleting all the expenses, so we're gonna have this icon and the text saying no expenses recorded. So I wanna make sure that something is gonna show up to the user instead of just letting this empty when there is no uh, expense whatsoever. So if we load the page again, as you can see, we're gonna have this loading state when we are simulating the fetching of the data. So we need to show kind of a load-in state to the user rather than not showing anything in this place. So let's go back to the VS Code. So the first thing that we're going to do, we're going to go to the context API. So we're going to create a new variable. So we already created the is loading state. So the only thing that we're going to do, we're going to add it inside the default state and also inside the value properties, so you can be able to use it in other components like I'm going to show you right now. And after that, we're going to go to the all expenses functional component. So here, first, we're going to create this functional component, which is, so let me clear all the expenses. So which is this one, we're having the icon, the no expenses recorded, and this little text in here. So we're going to use the icon from the MUI and also the H3 tag for the no expenses recorded, and then the P tag with those utility classes. And we're going to add a little bit of padding at the top so you can make sure that um, we're having some space from this part and this part so it can be centered at this place. And next, I'm going to show you how to be able to create this spinner. So we're going to use this from the MUI again. So that's the component that we're using, the circular progress component. So the first thing that we need to do, we need to import it from this package. So after doing so, we are going to create this if statement. So if is loading, so we're going to show the circular progress, which is the animation that you just saw, and then the loading text. Otherwise, we're going to make sure to see if when the is loading is false, to see if the all expenses length is 0, meaning that if it is empty, we're going to call this functional component. Otherwise, uh, if this is not empty, we're going to show this, which are the all expenses. So this is how we can be able basically to create that kind of thing. So the next thing that I'm going to do, I'm gonna work on the drop down. So I wanted to work on the adding the expense, but because we're having a drop down, the same drop down that we are using in here, so I want to make sure that this is working first, this drop down first, and creating all the logic needed. So when we click on here, we're going to just show the drop down that we created, or the wallet, sorry, that we created. So let's work on this. So the next thing that I worked on is to be able to show the wallets. So when I click on this, as you can see in the drop down, we can be able to show all the wallets with their icons. And also I added another icon in here, which is the editing icon to be able to edit the icon. And the best part is if we go to the new expense and we click on this, so because we're using the same drop-down, but we're having different outcomes. So now we don't have the add button, we got rid of it, and also we got rid of these two icons because here we want to just select the actual wallet when we click on it. So let's go back to the VS Code. And so the first thing that we're going to do is, since we're using the same drop down into two components into the main page of the application and the new expense, we need to find a way whether we clicked on here or on here. And the best thing to do is the same thing that we did for the confirmation window. So we are going to create another constant or another variable state. I called it is clicked on main page. So it's gonna have the full state by default. So make sure to add it into the value property. And then we are gonna go back to the wallet window. But first, we need to go to the sub header because this is the component and the sub header. And specifically, we're gonna go to the wallet option. And here we're going to call the set is clicked on main page so you can be able to set this as true. So after that, we're going to go to the wallet drop down, and this is where we're going to do most of the things. And the first thing that we're going to do inside the function when we handle the outside click of the drop down, we make sure to add the set is selected on page, and we are going to set it back to false. So the next thing that we are going to do, we need to show the wallets in our dropdown. So the first thing, what we are going to do inside the wallet list functional component, we are going to add this wallet from the context API because this is where we are storing all the wallets. Then in here, also we are going to add the is clicked on page variable, and we're using this filter. And the reason why we're doing so, because we want to get rid from the all wallet. And also another thing that I didn't show you, and something that I added inside the all wallet .js, I added the all wallets. And that's the icon that I set for it. And also make sure to go back to the all icons and add it in here, and also I added it in the so I added it inside the sorry, if we go to the function to the function where we are converting from text to icon. So I added the density small from here, but also I added a case for it. So if we're having this name from the wallet icon property, then we're going to return this icon, which is this icon in here that represent the all uh, wallets. So let's go back to the wallet dropdown. So we're going to filter out the all wallet based on the is selected on main page, meaning that if we are in the add expense window, make sure to get rid from the all wallet. Otherwise, we're going to use the all wallet with the all wallet object. Then we're going to use this inside the map function. And here we're in the single list, we're going to pass inside of it the wallet object. And for the single list, we're going to add this prompt, which is the wallet itself, the single object wallet, and that's going to have the wallet property or interface. Then we're going to add each property in its own div. So here we're going to add the icon, but we need to use the get icon component, the same thing that we did for the expense. So we're going to do the same thing for the wallet to be able to convert the icon that exists in the wallet from text to the MUI icon. Here we're going to use the name property of the wallet. And basically, so this is how we can be able to show all the wallets as well. Also to get rid from the all wallet when we click on the add expense. So the next thing that I'm going to show you is we're going to get rid from the add button inside when we when we open it from the add expense window, but also how to be able to get rid from the edit and the delete button. To be able to do so, so it's very simple. So we're gonna go up a little bit into the GSX of the dropdown, and here we're going to rely on the is clicked on main page. So meaning that if we clicked on the main page, we're going to add this add button function since that it is separate from the all wallets area. So that's why I did so. And also to be able to get rid from the edit and the delete button. So also we're going to rely on the is clicked on main page. So if it is true, we're going to show them, but if it is false, automatically they are not going to be shown. So that's the logic of doing so. And basically, this is how we can be able to create this, and that's how we can be able to use efficiently our code. So instead of creating a drop down twice, we can be able to just create a drop down, but we can play with the tiny operators and also some variables so you can be able to have different outcome, which is cool. And that's what I like about React. So the next thing that I want to do, I want to get rid from the edit and the delete icon from the all wallet. So now when we open the drop down, as you can see, we're not having the edit and the delete icons for the all wallet. And also another thing that I want to show you, like for example, if, because the all wallet need to be inside the all wallets. And let's say that we don't have when we delete all the wallets, because this it's not going to be deleted because we don't have the delete button for this. So let's say the user delete all the wallets. So I'm going to show you this case. Like for example, here we're going to have the all wallet to be able to select all the expenses. And if we click on the new expense, as you can see, we're having another outcome, which is no wallets created yet. So I'm going to show you how to be able to do this. So let's go back to the wallet dropdown. And first, I'm going to show you this edge case when we don't have any wallet. So what we're going to do, we're going to create this if statement. So if the filter all wallets from all wallets length is 0 and the is clicked on main page, we mean that we are at the expense window, then we're going to show this with the utility classes, this p tag. Otherwise, we're going to show this to be able to show all the actual wallets. And also another thing that I want to show you when to get rid from the edit and the delete button of the all wallets. So all we have to do is to add this. So meaning that if the is clicked on main page and the wallet.name is different than all wallets, then we are going to show the edit and the delete button. So this is the logic that we're using to be able to create this. The next thing that I added is the selection of the wallet. So I created the logic to be able to select the wallet. So when I click on this, as you can see, we're gonna have the color or the background changing and also the border, just letting the user know which wallet is selected. So when I click on the bank account, as you can see, it's going to change in here as well. And if I open up the wallet drop down, so we're going to have this is selected. And also if we do for the other wallet. And when we go to the new expense, because we're using the same wallet, as you can see, the outcome is very different than the outcome of the drop down in the main page, even though that I click on the any wallet in here, so it's not going to change into the main page. So let's go back to the VS Code. I'm going to show you the logic that I did to be able to create this successfully. So the first thing that I did, I created another function, another variable, sorry, called selected wallet from main page. So it's going to take, it's going to have the null by default, but also, as you can see, it can also accept the wallet interface, meaning that we can be able only to store in this selected or in this variable null or the wallet. And next, make sure to add the variables like this, like we did for all the other variables. Then the next thing that you are going to do, we are going to go to the, sorry, we're going to go to the wallet drop down, or we're going to go first to the subheader. And inside the subheader, because this is where we are showing this part. So first we are going to use the selected wallet from main page variable that we just created, and then we are going to add it in here. So this for the icon, and again we're going to use the get icon component to be able to convert the icon from text to the MUI icon. And we're adding this because we want to make sure that using this is safe, but we want to make sure that this is not null. Then we can be able to safely use this function. And the same thing that I did in here. So if this is not null, then we're going to use the span to be able to show the name inside the selected wallet. So after doing this, we're going to go to the wallet drop down. So this is where we're going to handle the selection. So when we open the drop down, so meaning that when we click on the wallet, so this is what is going to be triggered. And as you can see, I'm adding this is clicked on main page, meaning the reason why I added it just to avoid, because we're using the same drop down in the add expense window, but also into the main page to avoid, for example, when I click on the credit card, it's not going to be changing in here. So that's why I added this if statement. Then we're going to update our variable. Then we are going to reset the is clicked on main page. Of course, we're going to close our drop down. And also another thing that I did just to be able to change the colors of the wallet that we clicked on. So we're going to use this. So if the is clicked on main page is true, and we're going to make sure that the wallet that we clicked on is equal to the wallet that we have inside this functional component. Then we're going to use these utility classes to change the border and the background of the wallet. And of course, we're going to add this into the class name. So I did so just because we're having a lot of utility classes. I want to make sure that things are readable. So this is basically how we can be able to create our or the selection of the drop down. So the next thing that I'm going to work on is the add in a new expense. So now, because we got this drop down out of the way, so we can be able to use this safely. So now we are gonna start working on the add expense window to be able to add the expense. So the next thing that we're going to do, we're gonna work on the expense window. And as you can see, when I open the window, so we're not having the error message and we're having the focus set to the expense name input. So if we open our console log, so when I'm typing, as you can see, this is changing because I'm logging out the variable where I store the input. So first I want to just show you the logic that I'm going to do since we are not going to use any library because so I did this deliberately just to make sure how this form is working and also what are the logic that you are going to use, and we're going to do everything manually just to make sure that we check the input, the emptiness of the input, and also we're going to check if the expense already exists or not. So all of that we're going to work on it. But the first thing that I want to just share with you the foundation. So here, as you can see, I'm doing things a little bit differently, and I'm going to use a context inside this expense window. The reason why I'm doing so because I'm going to have many variables that I'm going to work with, and I want to make sure that I don't want to use any prompts whatsoever because there are going to be a lot of data uh, coming in and out these components, and the best way to do so is to use a context and to wrap it with the whole div so we can be able to share all the variables across all the child components. And as you can see, I'm not using any prompts whatsoever. So that's why I'm using the context. And this context basically works the same way that we did for the context application. So we're going to create the interface, and also we're going to create the default state, and then we are going to add to use the create context from React that's going to accept the interface and also the default state. And then we're going to use this custom hook so you can be able to use all of these variables across all the child components in here. So once I did this, as you can see, I'm adding all these variables at the parent level. And because that's gonna help me to make sure that these variables are going to be independent to the child components and to avoid having any unexpected behaviors. And because I ran into this problem many times, so the best way or the best practice is to do this. So after doing this, what we are going to do, now we can be able to use whatever variable that we want from here, and we're going to go to the expense input. So if we go to the expense input, as you can see, we're going to add the we're going to consume all of these variables by using this custom hook that we created. So here, so we are going to call the expense name and the set expense name because we're gonna link the expense name to the input. So as you can see, it is linked to the value of the input, and also we are using the onChange event listener, so we can be able to update the expense name. So whenever uh, we type in the keyboard, this is going to be triggered, and then our expense input is going to be updated. And also as you can see, I added the error message. So because we are going to handle the errors, and here first I want to show you the array that I created because we're having the amount input, the expense name, also the selection of the icon and the selection of the wallet. So I'm going to add this, of course, and as you can see, so this is the error messages area. So we're having the ID, the input show because we're going to use this whether we want to show the error underneath the input or not, and the message that we are going to add in here. Like for example, for the input, we might have the error that the input is empty or it already exists or an expense already exists into the array. So that's why I added this message property. So as you can see here, I'm using it, and so we are going to rely on it or to rely on the show property of the index 0. So if it is true, we are going to show this error, otherwise it's gonna not be shown. So that's why we open this up. We're not having any any error underneath the input. So basically, this is the logic that we are going to use, and it's gonna make uh, things a lot simpler to us to work on this form. So now when we open the expense and let's say, for example, I want to add a new expense and the input is still empty. So after doing so, I'm going to get the input is still empty error. And as soon as I type in, so the error is gone. And let's say, for example, I want to add an expense that already exists, and I click on the add expense. I'm going to have another error message, expense already exists. And if I change the input, the error is gone. So let's go back to the VS Code. I'm going to show you what I did to be able to create this logic. So the first thing that we're going to do, we're going to inside the submit expense window, and also another thing that I did inside the GSX, make sure to take the form underneath the footer where we're using the buttons, and inside the footer, make sure to add the button as type submit. So when we click on the button, it's going to trigger the onSubmit function of the form tag. And so that's the first adjustment that you should do to make sure that our submit function is working. So let's go back to the function. So here, what I'm going to do, I'm going to add this to know if the expense that we want to add is already existing by using the find method. And we're going to lower the case of the name of the expense inside the array and the expense name uh, inside the input, just to make sure that they are the verification or the check-in is going to be successful. And then we're going to create the input error message because we're going to have two errors. And after that, we're having this if statement, meaning that this block is going to be executed only if the expense name length is 0 or we didn't type anything in it, and the expense already exists. So if these conditions are met, then we're going to access to this part and to be able to know which um, whether that or which input or array that we're going to use. So we're going to use this if statement. So if already exists, we're going to use this error message and we're going to assign it to the input message. Otherwise, if the expense name is still empty, we're going to use this error message and then we're going to assign it to the input error message. And here we are going to update our error messages array, and we are going to make sure that the input is equal to the expense. So that's why we added the input property. So if it is, we're going to change the show property to true. Then we're going to update the message property with the input error message variable. So the reason why we did so you can be able to use this error message inside the functional component. Like for example, what I'm going to show you inside the expense input. If we go here, so if we go all the way down, so the error message, we're having the error message the first index that shows. So the show is going to be turned to true, and then we're going to show the p tag. So that's why we did this update in the submit function. And also another thing that I added is the handle input change function because I need to add this to be able to update the error message array whenever the user type in and the input. So I want to clear out the error message underneath the input. So this is what we are doing to do so. And this is basically how we can be able to do this. So I'm going to use this logic basically for the amount input. And of course, for the wallet, so we're going to use another logic, but also for the selection of the icon, we need to create another logic for this. So let's continue working on our expense form. And now I'm going to start working on the amount. And the next thing that I added is the amount for the error handling. And when I click on the add expense, as you can see, we're going to have this error. Amount must be greater than 0. And as soon as I add numbers like this, so we're not going to have the error message again. So let's go back to the VS Code, and I'm going to show you how to be able to create this. So the first thing that we need to do, we are going to add the if statement to check if the amount is less than 0. And so if it is, we are going to update the error message area like this, like we did for the input, the expense input. So after doing this, so we are going to um, also we need to create the amount input object. So it's going to have the 0 as a default value, but also make sure to add the amount and the set amount inside the amount input object like this. So you can be able to use these variables inside the amount input. So after going to the amount input, what we are going to do, we are going to create this, to be honest with you. This function was created by ChatGPT to be able to come up with this idea to be able to format the number as we type in. So after doing this, we're going to add the value like this. So we're going to add the formatter that format amount, and also make sure to make the type as text. And also when we close the window, the set amount, so this is not working. But if we go all the way down to make sure that when we close the window, the input is gonna set to 0. What I did here into the cancel button, so I used the set amount and I set it to 0. So that's the only way that I found to be able to do this. So now we can be able to handle the error for the expense name and for the amount. And now I'm going to start working on the icon. So whenever we are selecting the icon, this icon needs to be updated in here, but also into the code. So now we can be able to select the icon. So when we click on this, as you can see, I got rid from the cancel and the save button because there is no need for them. So the only thing that we can do, we can click on the icon that we want, and as soon as we click on it, the box or the window is going to be closed, and here you have it, our icon is showing up in here. And also notice that the colors are changing just to be able to know from which one or which icon has been selected by the user. So let's go back to the VS Code. I'm going to show you the logic that I did to be able to create this. And we're going to start by creating a variable where we're going to be storing our icon. So this variable, I called it selected icon, and it's going to have the account balance as a default string. Because this is going to be a string, so we're going to store the icons in a string format. Then we're going to use the get icon component to be able to convert the string to the MUI icon like we did for the expenses into the list. So after doing this, make sure to add the selected icon in here inside the selected icon object. And also at the bottom, make sure to add it into the value property so we can be able to use it in the child components. So after doing this, what we're going to do, we're going to go to the all icons functional component, and here we're going to add this function to be able to select the icon that we clicked on. So whenever we click on the icon, we need to change the is selected to true. And also another thing that I added in here, I set the first icon, which is the account balance, which is the default icon that we added inside the selected icon. So it's going to be selected as true. So the only one item it's going to has the is selected as true. So after doing this, inside this handle, the icon selection, we're going to update the icon that we clicked on. The is selected is going to be true. And this is the code that we are going to use. And also make sure to add the all icons or the set selected icon from the context API to be able to update the selected icon variable. And this is what we are doing. And also, we want to make sure that if the icon name, because inside the onClick event listener, we are passing inside the function the single icon that we clicked on. So we are going to check if this icon that we clicked on is equal to the name of the icon inside this area. So if it is true, we are first update the selected icon with the icon name. Then we are going to update the selected property as true. So we can update the selection, and then we are using here to be able to change the colors so you can be able to know the icon that we selected. So if the S selected is true, the background it's going to be purple and the text is going to be white. And for the other icons that have the S selected as false, they're going to have this background or the default colors. And also another thing that I added is inside the function to be able to update the icon. So I'm going to access to the function. So let me go to the expense window because this is where we click on the icon. And as you can see, I added this get icon component to be able to convert the icon that we stored inside the icon name that we stored inside the selected icon to the icon to its relative icon. But notice here I added these two properties, the text white and the 21 pixel, because what we were having the text as purple and the font size was 27 pixel. So the problem that I ran into is I have this as purple. So the only solution that I found is to be able to add these into props, and those are going to be optional, meaning that if we don't use them, we are going to be to set with the default values, which are the 27 pixel and the purple text color. So here, as you can see, we're adding the icon props, and also we are saying here into the SX property. So if the font size is not undefined, then we're gonna use it like the font size that we set. Otherwise, we're gonna use the default font size, and the same thing that we did for the text color. And that's how you can be able to actually, make the selection. So it is a little bit of work, but as you can see, it is working fine, and we can be able to select the icon that we want. So the last thing into the add expense window, we're going to work on the selection of the wallet. And the next thing that I added is the logic to be able to select or to store the element that we're going to select from the drop down. So as you can see here, we're having two wallets, and we can be able to open up the drop down, and also this has been stored in a variable, and I'm going to show you how to be able to do this. But I want to just show you, like, for example, let's assume that there is no, so let's assume that there is no wallet into the array. What's going to happen? So as you can see, after reloading our application. So as you can see, the opacity is 50%, and it tells to the user that there is no wallet and we can't be able to click on this. And as you can see, even if I click, we're not going to have the drop down because it makes sense. We don't have any wallet yet has been created. So after we create a new wallet by adding it, then we can be able to show the wallet in here. So let's go back to the VS Code. I'm going to show you how to be able to do so. So I created this selected wallet in expense window to be able to store the element, and we're going to use it to be able to show it at this place. So after doing this, make sure to add it into the value property, but also at the top into the default state. So after doing this, we're going to go to the expense window. And the first thing that we need to do is we need to call this variable that we created. So we called also its setter. So after doing this, we're going to go to the part where we are showing the this where we are showing this. Then we are going to make sure that first, if the selected wallet and expense window is not null, then we're going to convert the icon from text to the MUI icon by using the function. Then we're going to add the name of the variable like this. So after doing this, I want to show you the logic to be able to handle if there is no wallet except the wallet, the all wallets, and it's not going to be counted. So here we created the this area to be able to filter out the all wallet. Then we're going to use the use effect hook. So only if the length is uh, is not 0, then we are going to select the first element into this area without the all wallets object. And here, as you can see in the on-click event listener, we're going to use this if statement. So only if the length of this array is not 0, then we are going to call this function to be able to open up the drop-down. And in here, in the class name, we are going to use this so we can be able to actually make this the opacity 50% when the wallet or this array array's length is 0. And here I added a little bit of padding because when there is no item in it, the padding it's going to shrink a little bit. So that's why I added this 10 pixel padding. So when the length of the array is 0. And that's basically how we can be able to create this logic. So I'm going to continue working on this, meaning that when there is a wallet, so I need to make sure, like we did for this dropdown, when I click on the wallet, it's going to update the selected wallet to be able to show it in here. So now we can be able to add a new expense safely. So when I click on expense, so I'm going to add a name. So let's choose another icon and let's add stuff here, change the wallet, and I click on the add expense. As you can see, we're having the loading state, but also the notification telling us that the expense has been added. But also notice that the expense is at the top. So I'm going to show you how to be able to do this. So when the expense has been added, this also updated, well, it has been updated, but also the value. So let's go back to the VS Code. And before that, I want to just show you another thing. So let's say, for example, that this is commented. So let me comment the properties or the objects, and we're gonna open this up. And right now, because we didn't add any wallet yet, and we're gonna add something like this and click on add expense. So the expense is going to be added, but here we're going to have no wallets. So also I've been able to work with this edge case, and right now everything is working fine. So let's go back to the VS Code. So let me uncomment this. And what we're going to do, we're going to go to the expense window. And first, we're going to do a slight update inside the submit expense with form. So instead of just updating directly the error message, so we're going to create a shallow copy. The reason why I did this because I want to work with the most updated uh, array. And here I did a slight change in the if statement. So here we are going to work with the updated error message rather than working with the set error message. And here we're going to use the for each loop. And the same thing I did in here to be able to to update the show and the message properties. And here you will see why I did this little change because I want to check that all the show properties are false. So because if I worked with the set error messages and I want to use the error message, so it's not going to be updated yet because of the asynchronous nature of React. So that's why I did this slight adjustment. So if all false, meaning that everything is okay, then we're going to safely call the add new expense. Otherwise, we are going to update the error messages so we can be able to show the errors inside the expense window. So then I'm going to show you the add new expense window. So here, as you can see, we're going to create first a new expense object. So it's going to have the ID. So we're going to use this library to be able to generate IDs. The icon, we're going to get it from the selected icon. The name from the expense name. The wallet, we're going to get it from the selected wallet in expense window. So because that's gonna be null, so meaning that we need to add something when the null when the variable is not null, so it's gonna be null wallet. So that's why you saw when we didn't have the wallet, automatically the wallet was the null wallets. And the new property that I added is the creation date because to be able to sort the newest element when we add the new expense, so I had to use the creation date, something that I forgot to do. Then we're going to use this try and catch block, and I created the loading state. If we go up, I created this is loading state just to be able to simulate the network delay by using this new promise. So if everything goes right, we're going to use the toast notification to show this message, and we're going to update our all expenses array, and we're going to close the window. And finally, we're going to set the is loading false and also the set amount to 0. We're going to reset the amount. And finally, in the footer, we're going to pass in the is loading state because we want to show the loading the loading into the button. So it's going to be dependent upon the is loading state. So if it is true, we're going to show the loading. Otherwise, we're going to show the add expense. And also make sure to go to the all expenses and add the creation date, which is going to be the new date, just to be able to make sure that we are going to sort the elements. And talking about speaking about the sorting, finally, I'm going to go to the all expenses and the expenses list functional component, and I'm going to add the sorted expenses, which we're going to use the sort function to be able to sort the elements by date. Then we're going to use this and we're going to put it in here to be able to show the element sorted in our UI. So this is basically how we can be able to do this. So so far everything is working fine. The next thing that I'm gonna need to work on is the editing, meaning that when I click on this button, the window expense is gonna pop up, and I need to do some adjustments so you can be able to make sure that we can be able to edit the expense. For editing the expense, so I'm gonna show you first the first step that I did. When I click on the edit, as you can see, the same window that we used to be able to add an expense, we're gonna use it to be able to edit the expense. And notice right now we're having the edit word, but also the edit word. But if I click on cancel and I click on the new expense, the add word is back to the window. So I want to show you first the idea, and basically this is what I use in all my projects, so the same logic that I use. And the first thing that I did, I created a new variable again called the expense to edit. So it's going to have the expense interface and a null, and by default it's going to have the null value. Then we're going to go to the single expense. And in here, what I did, I added the open expense window object, but also I added the expense to edit. So we're going to go to the on-click event listener whenever we click on the edit button. So I added this handle edit click. So we're going to open up the open expense window by setting to true. Then we're going to assign the single expense, which is the expense that we clicked on, to the expense to edit. So after doing this, we're gonna go to the expense window, and into the header first we need to call the object set expense window to edit and expense to edit, and we're gonna use this inside the header itself. So if it is not null, we're gonna use the edit expense, otherwise we're gonna use the add expense. And also when we click on the close button, we want to set the expense to edit back to null. So the same thing that we're going to do at the bottom, if we go to the footer, so let's go to the footer function, and in here we're going to call the expense to edit, um, and we're going to use the same logic here inside the this statement. So we're gonna add for the false part, we're gonna make sure that the expense to edit is not null. So if it is null, we're going to make the edit expense, otherwise we're gonna make the add expense. So this is basically how we can be able to do this. And also we make sure in the cancel button to set the expense to edit back to null to avoid not having any problems whatsoever. So now I'm going to work effectively on the editing. So we need first to pull out the information from the expense once we want to edit to be able to show them in here. And once we click on the edit expense, I need to create another logic to be able to edit this particular expense. So now we can be able to effectively edit the expense. So also another thing that I added, we can be able to click on here and to open up the window. So if I click on here, as you can see, we're having all the information. So let's add some stuff in here. So I'm going to change the amount. Let's change the wallet and the same for the icon and click on add expense. So as you can see, our expense has been updated successfully. So let's go back to VS Code. So the first thing that I added is the edit expense. So we're gonna do the same principle that we did for the add expense. So we're gonna use the try and catch block. The loading is gonna be true. If the expense to edit is not null, then we're going to update the expense object. So we're going to use the spread operator of the expense data so you can be able, so all the data is remain the same except for these elements that you are going to change. We're having the name, the amount, the icon, and um, the wallet. And finally, we are going to update our all expenses area like this. We're going to use a map function. We're going to check if the ID of the updated expense is equal to the ID of this inside the map function is equal to the updated expense. Then we're going to create a new promise. Then we are going to show the toast notification, and we're going to close the window by using this line. And finally, we are going to set this loading to false, but also make sure to add the set expense to edit as null. So when we want to create a new expense, we're not going to have the edit word into our window. And another important thing that I didn't show you is to be able to load up the data of the expense inside the input. So I created another use effect for this. So only if the expense to edit is not null, then the open expense window is true. Then we're going to update all the variables that we are using for the inputs, the expense name, the set amount, and also we're going to update the selected um, icon. And also I think that I need to add the expense, the wallet, because what I found is here, as you can see, the bank account is not loaded. So I need to fix this. Then I'll be back to explain what I did. So I fixed this problem. So now when I click on the edit button, so as you can see, we're going to have the bank account because um, this expense has been saved into the bank account wallet. The same thing if I do for the cash or this expense, we're going to have the cash wallet. Uh, let's go back to the VS Code, and the component that we're going to go to is the wallet selection. And inside the wallet selection, so I added this code. So I added this if statement. So if the expense to edit is null, then we're going to take the first index from the filter all wallets from all wallets. Otherwise, we're going to extract the wallet, and so if the wallet is undefined, is not undefined, meaning that we found the wallet, then we're going to update the selected wallet in expense window. Otherwise, we're going to use the first element of the array. So this is basically how we can be able to fix this problem. So now we can be able to add, delete, and modify our expenses. Now we're going to move on to the wallet. And the first thing that we need to do, we want to be able to add the wallet when we click on the add wallet. So let's work on this. So now we can be able to add the wallet. So if we click on add, as you can see, um, we are handling the errors. So if I click on the add wallet, we're going to have the error. And if I want to add an existing wallet, we're going to have this error again. But until I add something different, and also I change the icon, I add the wallet, and as you can see, we're having this notification, and here we're having the new wallet. And also if we go to the new expense and we go in here, we're going to find our wallet, and we can be able to select it as well. So I'm going to show you. Let's add this expense. And after that, as you can see, we're having our expense created successfully with the new wallet that we created. So let's go back to the VS Code, and we're gonna follow the same principle and steps that I did for the wallet window. So I just to be able to save up some time, so I created all of that at once, and so the first thing that I did, we're going to create our context. So this is what I did. So the same thing that I did for the expense window, just to make sure that our code is organized and a lot more readable. So after creating the interface, and here we're having two elements, the input name and the error object. So the error is going to be just a simple object with the message and the show. We're not going to have an array because we're having one input. And then we are creating our context. We are creating our custom hook to be able to consume this context. And then we need to wrap the whole application or GSX, sorry, with the wallet window context tab provider. So that's the first step. And also make sure to go to the footer and the button the button need to have the type submit, and if we go all the way up, so let's go to the function to be able to submit the form. As you can see, we're having the function called submit the form, and if we go a little bit at the bottom, so we're having the onSubmit. It is linked to the onSubmit property of the form tag. So that's the first thing, and then we are going to add the input name, the error, and the is loaded. And also we're going to add all of these because we're gonna use them, like for this one, to be able to set, because we are going to use it to be able to know whether we opened the window or not, so it can be able to set the focus to the input, the wallet, and the set all wallets to be able to update our wallet array. The selected icon, we're going to use it when we click on the icon so we're going to use this to be able to update the icon property of the wallet, and then we're going to use this to be able to set this as false, so we don't have, when we go to the expense, we don't have the all wallet and the add button in here. So that's why I added it. So now I'm going to go to the submit the form function. So the first thing that I'm going to do, I'm going to copy the updated error. We're going to find if the wallet exists or not. We're going to create this. So the same thing that we did for the expense window. So if all of these are true, then we're going to access to this block. So if this is true, we're going to add this message. Otherwise, we're going to add this message. Then we're going to update the message, the updated error, and then we're going to update the error. Else, if everything goes well, we're going to add the new wallet. And while adding this use effect, just make sure that when we open up the window, everything is going to be a reset. Then we're going to access to the add wallet function, sorry. We're going to create this new wallet object. And here we are going to use this try and catch block to be able to create our our wallet. And then finally we're going to set the is loading to false, and also this it's going to be set to false. And finally we're going to go to the footer. We're going to pass inside of it the is loading, and then we're going to use the is loading function or property or variable, so you can be able to show the loading word. Otherwise we're going to use the add wallet. And so that's basically how we can be able to create this. And finally, inside the expense input, make sure to add the input name object and the error object. So this it's going to be, the input is going to be linked to the value. We're creating the reference, so you can be able to, when we open up the window, we're going to set the focus, and also we're going to add the error that show. So when we click on the button and the error shows up, the focus is going to be set to the input automatically. Of course, we're adding the onChange event listener, and here we are going to update our input name, and then we're going to reset the error. So that's basically how we can be able to create our wallet. So the next thing that I'm going to do, I'm going to work on the deletion. So when I click on the delete, it's going to be deleted. And the other function is to be able to edit the actual wallet. So now we can be able to delete the wallet. So when I click on delete, as you can see, I'm gonna have this window again, but right now we're using the word wallet, but also we are changing the message as well. And when I click on the delete button, as you can see, the expense or the, so I need to change this. The wallet has been deleted, but also all the expenses that are related to this wallet are as well deleted. So let's go back to the VS Code. And also another thing that I want to show you when I click on the clear all button. So we're going to have different message and different words depending on what we clicked on. Also, when we click on the delete expense, we're going to have this as well. So let's go back to the VS Code. I'm going to show you how to be able to create this for the wallet. So the first thing that I did, I created the selected wallet variable to be able to store our wallet. So once we did this, we're gonna go to the drop down. Inside the drop down, we're gonna go to the delete button, and here we're going to trigger this on-click event listener, and then we're going to update the selected wallet. We're going to close the drop down, open up the confirmation window, and make sure to add the variable set selected wallet that we created. So now we're going to move on to the confirmation window, and in here we are going to create this delete function. So we're gonna set the is loading as true. We're gonna create a new promise. We're going to delete the wallet or the expenses that have this wallet. Then we're going to update the all expenses. Then we are going to delete the wallet. Then we're going to set these two variables to null, and our we're going to close the window. And here I need to, because I just copied it from the expense function. So let me adjust this. And for The messages, as you can see, I created the header and the message variable, and we're going to use the use layout effect. And then for each, if the selected wallet is not null, we're going to update the delete wallet. The same for the selected expense. And if we clicked on the all button, clear all button, we're going to use the messages. And this is going to be relying upon the open confirmation window. Then we're going to use the header and the message variable states to be able to show them into our UI. And then in the close the window button, so make sure to add the set selected wallet as null just to reset the variable. So this is how we can be able to delete the wallet. So the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to modify the so I'm going to modify the wallet. And now we can be able to modify the wallet. And so we're gonna choose the bank account and we're going to add something in here, but also we're going to change the icon and click on edit. And as you can see, the wallet has been updated, but also the expenses that are related to this wallet has been updated as well. So let's go back to the VS Code. And the first thing that we're going to do, we're going to go to the drop down. So let's go to the drop down. I added this on wallet window, and we're going to update the selected wallet. We're going to close the drop down and set open wallet window and make sure to add the variables inside the use app context to be able to use them into the function. So now we're going to go to the wallet window and we're going to use the same principle that we did for the expense window. So the first thing that I did, I created this use effect, or we're going to use the use layout effect instead of using the use effect. Um, because this is synchronous and the other one is asynchronous. So you will have a little bit of flickering whenever the variable changes when we open up the window. So that's why this use layout effect exists to be able to fix this problem. So here the selected wallet, so if it is not null, meaning that we're going to create a new wallet. So we're going to update the wallet. We're going to update the input name by the selected name, but also the same thing for the selected icon. Otherwise, we're going to empty these variables. And then I created the update existing wallet. So here, if the selected wallet is null, we're going to exit the function. Then we're going to update our wallet like this. We're going to use this try and catch block. We're going to set this to true. Then we're going to simulate the internet delay. Then we're going to update the wallet inside the all expenses. Then we're going to update the same thing for the wallet. We're going to update it by relying on the ID. Then we are going to show the notification, close the window, set this back to null, and finally set this to false and the is click on main page to false. And if we go at the bottom into the footer and the button, so I added these as well because we need to set the selected wallet to null and also into the button. So if the selected wallet um, is not null, we're going to use the edit wallet text. Otherwise, we're going to use the add wallet. And the same thing for the header. And so if we go all the way up into the header, so we're going to do the same thing for the expense window. We're going to use this. If it is not null, we're going to use the edit wallet. Otherwise, we're going to use the add wallet. And that's it. So this is how we can be able to update our our wallet. So as you can see right now, all the operations that are working with the wallet, we can be able to delete, modify, and add the wallet. And the same thing for the expense. We can be able to clear all the wallets or all the expenses as well. Um, Then the next thing that I'm going to do, I'm going to work on the search to be able to search from here, and it must shows up live whenever searching.